Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So fear and anxiety is a part of everyday life. You'll realize that there's not one single person out there who doesn't struggle with fear and anxiety, at least to some degree. From an evolutionary standpoint, fear and anxiety are there to protect us. Fear gets us to motivate action, whether it be running, freezing, or fighting. Anxiety has to do with worrying about the future and prospective dangers that might be on the line. So inherently, these emotions aren't necessarily a bad thing. They serve specific functions that have allowed our species to procreate and basically dominate the world as we know it. However, these emotions can be crippling if they are not handled correctly. Myself included, when I first started doing these videos, you might notice that in my earlier works, I was a little awkward and anxious in front of the camera. And that is because I did have a little bit of a performance anxiety. Especially because, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not really comfortable talking to a camera, and it's something that I've had to slowly learn and get accustomed to. And that's kind of what I want to share with you guys today, is learning to use the energy from fear and anxiety to your advantage. So without further ado, I'm gonna share with you the strategies that I've learned and the way that I use them to, instead of being hindered by fear and anxiety, using it to actually go out and do something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. So first things first, if you're gonna want to change how you respond to fear and anxiety, you first have to become aware of the situations that cause you fear and anxiety. In modern day society, there's a lot of issues that cause people fear and anxiety, but I'll make an example of a very common one, which is public speaking. Now, many people might have had the experience of that anxiety leading up to a public speaking event. You start getting sweaty palms, you get a little heart racing, you tighten up your throat because you don't want to speak as loudly, and so on and so forth. Having the awareness of these symptoms allows you to then acknowledge and become aware of the situations that trigger the anxiety, and then the physiological responses that occur during that situation. Once you finally take inventory of all those symptoms and the cues, you can then move on to the second step. The second step is reframing your relationship with these emotions. As I said, fear and anxiety used to serve a purpose, and they still do in this day. However, when they are allowed to just roam around freely and control your behavior, they aren't suiting you in the most profitable manner. Going back to the public speaking example, it tends to cause us to close in and become tight and nervous, and ultimately harm our performance during the speech. So if you learn to instead change your relationship with those emotions and realize that they are there to help you, that the heart racing should be taken as a cue of your body preparing yourself to be energetic, to be more lively and have more blood flowing through the body to enact whatever might be needed of you during that presentation. The sweaty palms don't really serve a particular purpose, but they are the cue that allow you to realize that your body is telling you you are ready to actually tackle this feat. So don't be afraid of fear and anxiety. Instead, change your relationship with them. After all emotions are energy in motion. So if you can learn to harness the energy from fear and anxiety and funnel it into something that actually is productive, you'll realize that you can get a lot more done. And instead of fighting your psychology, you are working with it. Next up, you're gonna wanna learn how you actually respond to those emotions. So we talked about the clamming up and being tight, but furthermore, another manifestation of fear and anxiety actually is self-doubt. And self-doubt is something that everyone really has to learn to overcome, because once you overcome self-doubt, the world becomes your oyster and you actually become an active participant rather than a passive observer and allowing the life to just run past you. And self-doubt is troublesome because it really hinders people from actually accomplishing the goals that they set out for themselves. In fact, it was something that I deal with, and I think I still deal with in other dimensions of my life. But ultimately, you're gonna have to chip at this one day at a time. And the best way is by learning to trust yourself. Often, if you have a gut feeling about something, there's a reason for it. And let's say you had a gut feeling and it turns out to be wrong. Well, now you at least know that you trusted yourself, that it was wrong this time, but you'll learn from that experience, and then the next time you have a gut feeling, it might not be so wrong. And honestly, I find that my gut feelings are very rarely wrong. I don't know where those feelings come from, I think it's some sort of subconscious processing that's undergoing in the mind, and we have to have a positive relationship with ourselves and our subconscious, because once those two things align, you essentially fall into a flow state. And a flow state is something that I'm sure most people are familiar with but didn't know what it was called. And essentially a flow state is the state of consciousness where you are just so focused on whatever task you're doing, you're so automated, you're so tuned in that you don't really notice time passing. Another common manifestation of fear and anxiety is procrastination. And the reason we procrastinate is because we don't want to do it now, we're lazy, so on and so forth. But ultimately, doing that harms ourselves. If we procrastinate, we don't allow ourselves to do the best work possible. Some people can. I think the time crunch is something that can be a powerful motivator for high quality work, but not necessarily. Creating common habits of procrastination only cause you to have more work further on. And when you start doing that, you're basically just adding more load to your back, and it's just gonna crack one day if you're not careful about it. And I think the best way to get rid of procrastination is to use momentum in your favor. And so one way to use momentum in your favor is by following what is known as the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule basically is this idea that if you can do something in 2 minutes or less, you should do it right now. No waiting, no buts, no ands. Just do it immediately. And once you do that thing, you might find that you want to do your next goal, or you can move on to the next project more easily because you already have a win in your favor, having completed something, and now it's easier to go on to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So it's like a snowball effect, and that's the idea of momentum. So having momentum work in your favor by doing something as simple as waking up and brushing your teeth, you'll find that you can become much more productive than you had previously thought. And when you're much more productive, you become more confident, you start removing that self-doubt, and all of this basically just ties together. So ultimately, I don't think fear and anxiety are really bad things. It's not a very productive emotion to be in. However, if used correctly, you can actually channel the energy from those emotions and be very productive. In fact, myself recording this video right now, I wasn't really feeling it. I've tried recording this one twice now because I keep changing the script and what I want to say. But ultimately I was like, you know what, there's just no point in postponing this any longer. You just gotta do it. So at the end of the day, remember, just do it, be confident, get rid of that self-doubt, be aware of what gives you fear and anxiety, and then change the way you perceive fear and anxiety, because they are not inherently bad. They may feel uncomfortable and they aren't the most, satisfactory feelings to have at any given moment, but they are there to motivate you, and that's what you should realize. Fear and anxiety motivate us to take action. So use it to take action and do the things you want to do. And as Robert Kiyosaki said in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, fortune favors the bold, not necessarily the intelligent. So if you just go into the world boldly, confidently, and with fear and anxiety as motivators, you will do much better than people who just passively allow life to pass them and allow fear and anxiety to control them. So at the end of the day, learn to use your mind instead of having your mind use you. And that's all I really wanted to get across in this video. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Man, y'all just don't know about this life I'm living right now, man. I'm just fucking loving life, bro. You just gotta love that life, bro. Mwah, love that shit. Love